Welcome to the Big Bear Podcast, brought to you by Cash Converters. I'm Ollie Peterson, and the feedback is coming in. This is your connection between the Perth Bears and, of course, our wonderful supportive community. And I'm very pleased to say on this episode, we are joined by the Chief Executive Officer, probably the Big Bear himself, Anthony Ceglie. Good to see you.
Good to see you, Ali. How are you?
Yeah, I'm really good. Enjoying the job?
Loving the job. Sort of wake up every day a little bit daunted, I won't lie, but wake up every day thinking I must have the best job in Perth.
And you've got about a year to go till the ball's kicked off, but it must have been a whirlwind few months for you.
Yeah, look, it has been. I mean, a bit of a career pivot for me out of media after 2 decades in media, but when an opportunity to grow a national sporting franchise from the ground up with a blank sheet of paper in your hometown, and not just any sporting franchise, an NRL club, how do you say no to that?
Is that what drew you to it, Anthony, to take the punt?
Yeah, look, definitely. The NRL is just on such a massive upswing, thanks to, the chairman in Peter V'landys, who's always been a mentor of mine, and the CEO, Andrew Abdo. I mean, what they've done with the game in the last few years has been remarkable. 400,000 more people watched the NRL Grand Final this year than the AFL Grand Final. Last year. We're in January now. And so, there's all this momentum building behind the NRL. And so what a time. I feel really fortunate and really lucky that, we're launching this Perth team now while the NRL is on an upswing, and really privileged to be doing it. And then, you sort of wake up every day and, like I said, it's daunting. There's lots of stuff to do, but then you think you've got a head coach in Mel Meninga, like a living immortal. How amazing is that? You've got a GM of football in David Sharp. I'm surrounded by an amazing team on the commercial side. And so, every day is a privilege, to be honest.
I'm sure it is. And the momentum that is already building, has it met your expectations or surprised you, the real level of interest and fan engagement?
Yeah, look, I don't think it's met my... I don't think it's taken me by surprise. I think it's taken some people by surprise. But for me, I've always felt that there is just such an opportunity for an NRL team in Perth. I remember speaking to the NRL WA chair, Bob Cronin, and the local CEO, John Saxon, a few years ago when I was editing the West Australian, and they were talking to me about how good it would be to have an NRL team. And it's in many ways, it's a no-brainer. We only just launched our Instagram page, don't have a team on the field, haven't done a training session, and in a couple of days we have 40,000 followers on Instagram. There is a momentum and a buzz in this town about the Perth Bears, and we just need to bottle it and make the most of it.
It's an organic growth, isn't it, Anthony? And you know that challenge of winning over Perth better than most, being the bi-coastal story yourself, like the football club based in Perth, obviously a bit of heritage in Sydney.
Yeah, definitely. And look, we're really honoured and proud to be taking that legacy of the North Sydney Bears as respectfully as possible. They're a 1908, foundation club, cruelly sort of kicked out of the league during the Super League Wars or in the aftermath of the Super League Wars, in many ways like the Western Reds. And so, we're really proud of that heritage, and we're trying to do everything we can to make sure that it's at the front of our minds. But at the same time, it is a Perth club. And, for us to be truly successful, we need Perth people behind us, and we need Perth people barracking for us. And we need Perth people showing up to games and buying merchandise and all that sort of stuff. But all of our data to this point shows that, you think about, we launched our logo, sold 5,000 T-shirts very quickly, and about 80% of those T-shirts went to West Australians. And so, we're seeing the trend, which is that we're going to have a spiritual home for the Bears in North Sydney, but Perth is behind this, and this will be a Perth club.
And when that website first launched, obviously so much demand, there are a couple of little hiccups, Anthony.
Yeah. Well, it's always a good sign. Look, we were privately, there was a little bit of stress and anxiety about the fact we've launched a merch site and the site went down. But I said to the team pretty quickly, look, it's probably a good sign. If we're so popular, the site's crashing. It's not a bad, positive PR story, to be honest. And we fixed it pretty quickly. So, and don't forget too, when we say we launched our merch, it was a pretty basic T-shirt, right? So just wait. It's a good looking T-shirt, but just wait until, we've got scarves and all the other stuff, the hats, all that sort of stuff. It will take off like a rocket.
I'm sure it will. And I'll come to some of those FAQs the fans really want to know about, which you might be able to shed a bit of light on soon. But that logo, and even that story with Dave, who was obviously on Big Bear's podcast just last episode, there's such a great community vibe and feel to that as well, Anthony.
Yeah, think one of the, I think it was the Daily Telegraph who called it the feel-good story of the NRL off-season, our logo, and I thought that really encapsulated it well. And, like there was a lot of, I'll be honest, like the moment I took the job, I'm about 6 months into the job, and almost from day dot, the first question was, what's the logo going to be? And the second question was, where's the merchandise? And so, we have asked people to be patient. But like the way I see it is when you're a startup and when you're a blank sheet of paper and when every decision you make is a first step, you want it to be on sure ground. And so, we're deliberately being, ticking boxes and taking things at the right speed because we want to get every decision right.
Yeah.
And, when the Daily Telegraph has a poll that says 90% of people support your logo, like that to me says we're taking things at the right speed.
Yeah.
We're not rushing. We're not jumping out of the gates to appease a few people. We're saying, actually, we're going to slow down, take in all the opinions, take in the heritage, respect all the views that we need to respect, people like Billy Moore and Greg Florimo, listen to those people and then get it right.
That must be an interesting process you're going through, Anthony.
Yeah, it is. And it's probably like, to be honest, it's probably the opposite of what I've done in my life, where like I've loved to move fast and make decisions quickly and roll the dice. I think, I probably learnt over time that sometimes you do have to take your time on things. And that's what we're trying to do. And like I said, I think the startup nature of this, like every decision we make, to be honest, is so big because it's a first. And you don't want to make decisions and then spend the next 6 months trying to put the toothpaste back in the tube. And so I think, taking things a little bit slower, making sure we get things right is a good philosophy to have.
You feel as though you're starting to be embraced by Perth just through this natural organic process?
100%. The one thing that I am 100% confident in is that we'll sell out every game in 2027. Like there is a huge atmosphere for this club in Perth. And I think will be an incredible success. The fans are there. You think about the Western Reds, there's been a huge population boom since the Western Reds 20 odd years ago. The birth rate has actually slowed down in Perth. And so a lot of the growth in Perth has come from the East Coast. So these are people that grew up in Queensland, grew up in New South Wales. So it's their game and they've been waiting for a team to barrack for. And then there's a lot of expats from the UK, from New Zealand, from South Africa. And, this game is certainly not foreign to those people.
So to be able to get your hands on one of the hottest tickets or the hottest ticket in town, Anthony, probably that third FAQ on behalf of logos and merchandise would be memberships.
100%. And look, I can say we'll come out soon. Obviously, it's got to go through the process. We've got a very, very experienced, professional and diligent board. So it's got to go through our Perth Bears board process and the chair, Ben Morton. But we will release pretty soon. My recommendation would be, take the opportunity as soon as you can to put your hand up because I genuinely feel there will be a supply and demand issue. HBF Stadium fits about 22,000 people. We will have a lot more than 22,000 people who will want to be coming to our games.
So that's the home ground here in Perth. Any thought about the first match in 2027 perhaps being down the road at Optus?
Look, I think it's a question. I know Optus is pretty keen for it and they think that they can get 60,000, easily to the game. I think it's, to be honest, it's one of those ones where the head coach, Mel Meninga, and the GM of football, David Sharp, will have a lot of say in it. And I also think, we want to be a family-first, community-orientated club. And so, if we're going to sell ticketed memberships to people, I think it's only right that they get their seat that they have paid for the first game, which would mean staying at HBF Park for it. But, these are questions. Look, they're good questions to have, right? And they're good issues to have when it's about supply and demand rather than thinking, God, is anyone going to rock up to this game? Like what we know is that there will be a lot of people itching for that first game.
Absolutely, there will be. And then in a so-called away game, if you're in Sydney, for the North Sydney Bears fans, it's almost a home game for them as well, Anthony.
100%. I'm convinced that there will be thousands and thousands of North Sydney fans who will barrack for the Perth Bears when we're on the East Coast. And I think other NRL clubs will benefit massively from that. They will see their crowds jump 5,000, 10,000, depending on the matchup, because of the Perth Bears, which is a wonderful thing. And again, it's absolute credit to three people, really, like the NRL chair, Peter V'landys, and the CEO, Andrew Abdo, for their vision, and also, of course, the WA Premier, Roger Cook, for backing this in.
Absolutely. North Sydney Oval could host a Bears game at some stage?
Yeah, look, it's a good question. I think North Sydney Oval will definitely host Perth Bears activities. Like, we'll do captain's runs. We want to do a trial match there. The question really about North Sydney Oval is the capacity of it.
Yep.
And the capacity of it and its ability to host NRL proper in terms of change rooms and that sort of thing, taller facilities even, that sort of thing.
Yep.
What I would love to see, and what I think is a no-brainer, is for North Sydney Oval to be upgraded. Like, it's, this iconic, landmark, beautiful oval in the second CBD of New South Wales. It's got a brand new metro stop, like next door, basically. And it's sport, and it's used for cricket as well. I just think, I don't know what the Minns government and the Albanese government are doing if they're not upgrading North Sydney Oval. I think it would be such a positive story.
You mentioned before the family focus as well of the football club, of the Bears. That's obviously been part of the pitch to the players who have already come on board as well. Anthony, you're starting to build a very competitive roster.
Yeah, look, we are. And like, full credit to, again, to the head coach Mel Meninga and the GM of football David Sharp, in the sense of, like, they are the ones who have really driven from the very first time I spoke to them. Mel has been so big on the fact he wants us to be a family club and he wants it to be a community-orientated club. And, we feel, again, really proud and privileged, the rest of us, to be working towards that vision. But, the fact of the matter is pretty much any player that comes to Perth and listens to that vision around family and community, I think will sign. Because at the end of the day, Perth is the best place in Australia to live. It's beautiful weather, beautiful beaches, no traffic, no road tolls, beautiful school system, great healthcare system. Like, if you could live in Perth, why would you live anywhere else in Australia?
And you and I both know that firsthand as young fathers of children. Is there any better place to bring your family up than Perth?
No, there's not. I mean, I recently lived in Sydney and I've got an 8-year-old and a 4-year-old. And one of my motivations, other than the incredible opportunity that is the Perth Bears, but one of my motivations for this job was to bring them home. Because it is such an amazing place to raise your children. And I think, when we have that conversation to people, and a lot of these NRL players are sort of young men thinking about their future. A lot of them have young kids, or they're just married and are thinking about having kids. And, especially when you talk to their partners, like, it's a really easy sell to say, come live in Perth, build a lifestyle over here, and you'll never regret it, right?
No,
and you'll never leave.
No, you won't. And you can start to build that thread. And then that young boy or girl who is interested in rugby league, who might be in the pathway system in Western Australia, now they have that opportunity to one day pull on the Perth Bears jersey.
Oh, yeah. And look, and that'll be the ultimate success for us. I get, asked a lot, like, what does success for the Perth Bears look like? And, I genuinely believe that success for the Perth years is, in 10 years' time, when the best player in the NRL is West Australian born and bred. Like, that for us is success, and that's what we want to achieve. We want West Aussies playing for the Perth Bears, but we want West Aussies playing for the Perth Bears at an elite level, winning accolades, winning awards and winning grand finals. And
that confidence is also there from a commercial point of view, Anthony. You've managed to obviously break some records in the signatures of major sponsors, and you got plenty of sponsors obviously knocking on the door wanting to be a part of the Perth Bears. Yeah, 100%. And I think it's such an easy sell again for these companies. There's kind of two sells that we say to people. There's the East Coast companies, like Budget Direct's a really good example. So they want to get into the Perth market. I mean, they're already in the Perth market, but they want to double down on Perth. But Perth's an island. It's an island that has, for lack of a better word, monopoly companies that have always had Western Australia because, they're West Australian companies. But for someone like Budget Direct, this is the perfect opportunity to disrupt that market. So there's East Coast companies that see that. They see, here's an opportunity to disrupt in a sport that we know because they're Sydney-based companies or they're Queensland-based companies and that we feel comfortable in. And on the flip side, and something I think is just as exciting, is Perth companies that want to break into the East Coast
And when you're talking about breaking to the East Coast, you're mainly talking about breaking into Sydney. And the NRL is the perfect vehicle for that. If you're a Perth company wanting to get the attention of Sydney, there's no point sponsoring the AFL, to be honest, like especially in Western Sydney. Sponsoring the NRL, now that makes a difference. And, Cash Converters is a really good example. I mean, they do AFL, of course, but they're a brilliant, locally founded company that wants to grow in Western Sydney. Well, how good is that going to be? How good is Cash Converters on the front of jersey of the Perth Bears going to be when we're playing games against Penrith for a company that wants to grow in Western Sydney?
Yeah, you've got a brilliant facility which will be constructed obviously in Malaga, for those who are wondering where that is, about 20 minutes east of the CBD. And at the moment I started to see the grass starting to be laid just next to the Wacker ground where the team's going to be able to train next year. Anthony, what a spot just there on the Swan River. a
look, and I think, a lot of, it's funny, I think about the Perth Bears and there is almost like a symbolic maturing of the city that I think is ingrained in what we're trying to do. Perth deserves an NRL team. It deserves to have AFL and NRL. It's a big enough city. It's got a massive population these days. It's growing. And so I think in a lot of cases, the Perth Bears have become a symbol of WA growing up. And it's funny, we have this training spot, for the listeners who don't know Perth well, we have a training spot being built in, like you said, it's an iconic spot in the Perth CBD, on the fringe of the Perth CBD, but you have to drive past it to get into the CBD. It's right in a massive thoroughfare next to a very prestigious school that plays rugby. And so I just feel like it hasn't been lost on people, the symbolism of suddenly in this iconic spot seeing NRL goalposts. Not seeing AFL goalposts, but seeing NRL goalposts. I don't think that's been lost on people in this town. And we put up a video on our social media pages. I put it up on my LinkedIn page and, it went viral because I think people see that and they see it as an inspiring part of this story, which we're really proud of.
The Perth Bears have arrived down here. You've got a huge 2026 before kick-off in 2027. We wish you all the very best and look forward to catching up down the path here on the Big Bears podcast.
Of course, anytime, and thanks so much for having me on.
My pleasure. Anthony Ceglie, the CEO of the Perth Bears. Keep all of that feedback coming through here on our YouTube channel and we'll continue to ask those questions on your behalf. The link, of course, between the community of the Bears and the football club itself, thanks to Cash Converters.